Pegasus is military-grade spyware sold to nation-state governments and agencies, ostensibly to fight crime and terrorism at incredible expense, but reports say it's also being abused by authoritarian regimes and used against journalists and dissidents. It can be implanted onto iPhones and Android phones by targeted one-click social engineering attacks like spear phishing, or more recently, no-click payloads in messages, at which point it's just, spyware on. Now, Pegasus isn't known to have been used on phones registered on US cellular networks, though it may have been used on US citizens with phones registered on networks in other countries. Still, the vast majority of people watching this video right now simply aren't worth the time or expense required for it to be deployed against us. Sorry, but relatively speaking, we're just boring. Still, it is 100% absolutely positively worth being as informed as possible about Pegasus, because beyond just you or me, Pegasus might not only be a tool for law enforcement, but a weapon against privacy and freedom. Basically a James Bond movie as written by Edward Snowden. So let's do this. Sponsored by CuriosityStream and Nebula. I'm gonna go over what you can do about Pegasus and also answer all of your let us tell you all about it. It would not have only made the story much better, again in my opinion, but it would have burned the NSO exploits that much sooner, forced them to spend more money faster, and used up their exploits to keep their spyware going, and potentially protected a lot of people in the meantime, which would have been a huge win for everybody. So I'd honest to Megatron require a lot of people, or in the case of Pegasus and other tools used by nation states, massive amounts of resources, including and especially money. Partially because ethical security researchers disclose whatever bugs and exploits they find to the Apples and Googles and other platforms of the world so they can be fixed and protect us, the users. And that just leaves fewer bugs and exploits for the less than ethical people to sell directly or to companies like NSO. Now, Apple and others also have bug bounty programs where they pay for they're shutting down the infrastructure being used by NSO for the Pegasus spyware. And this will by no means stop them, but it will make their lives just that much more inconvenient. So what about the idea of removing images, links, and other potential attack vectors, those phones or Android phones? What Apple and Google and companies can and are doing is just continuing to harden iOS and Android and the online platforms, things that make it more difficult and time-consuming and expensive to weaponize any bugs and exploits that they find or purchase. Apple's put point authentication codes into the silicon and created Blastdoor as a way to prevent a lot of the previous types of iMessage attacks from being successful. Google has Project Zero, which tries to find and report bugs before they can be weaponized. And that's just the proverbial tip of the offense and defense security response iceberg. It is still absolutely a cat and mouse game, but all the platforms are always playing to win. So what can you do if you think your phone has been infected with Pegasus? And if you really, seriously, zero paranoia, think you're a high-value, high-risk target of Pegasus spyware based on who you are and what you do, like a specific target, there's a mobile verification toolkit that you can use to detect it on iPhones and try to detect it on Android phones, because it's much more difficult to detect on Android phones. It's a command line only tool, at least for now, but hopefully that'll change and soon. Because of that, though, I'll link to the extremely nerdy process in the description. Also, while a lot of exploits simply can't persist after a reboot of the iPhone, which is why I paranoidly reboot my iPhone so periodically, it's currently unclear, to me at least, whether Pegasus can, either immediately or through some pre- and post-reboot process. It might just be complicated, which is why successful and unsuccessful attacks are both claimed to have been found. So if you think you are infected, your safest bet at that point is probably just scorched earth, or at least scorched phone. Burn it down and start over with a fresh device. That way you are just absolutely 100% sure. Now, if you enjoy watching these deeper dive videos, but would enjoy watching them even more with no ads, no sponsors, and often with extended cuts, bonus segments, and more, check out Nebula. That's where I post all my videos in just exactly that way. And the good news is,